So, over the past few days, some messages sent from Jonah Hill to his, at the time, girlfriend were leaked by her. The internet, of course, blew up over this, and now we have a ton of people calling these messages abusive and controlling. Imagine having boundaries, am I right? Now, one that I really disliked and saw a ton of people sharing came from this person on TikTok that we'll go ahead and take a look at right now. Enjoy.
Jonah Hill was using therapy speak to control his girlfriend Sarah, his now ex-girlfriend, and it's important that we go over this misuse of therapy language, which is kind of a thing these days, and how it can be super problematic as it masks controlling behavior under a commonly accepted positive concept, in this case, boundaries.
Oh, yes. Please tell me how the word boundaries is misused here. Also, can we just take a second to laugh at the fact that the word boundary is now apparently a therapeutic medical term? Fuck off. It's almost like you're throwing that in there just to make it sound like Jonah Hill is more toxic just by stating these are words are therapy terms. But sure, whatever. He says, I don't want a partner that does X, Y, and Z. If you can't do or not do those things, then I don't want a romantic relationship with you. All of which is said extremely respectfully, by the way. We'll just have to read through the text word for word that I notice you have so kindly covered up, by the way. Don't think that I didn't notice that. Now, shall we? These are directly from the text. If you need, then proceeds to list his boundaries that he doesn't want ignored. I am not the right partner for you. If these things bring you to a place of happiness, I support it, and there are no hard feelings. These are my boundaries for romantic partnership, my boundaries with you based on the way these actions have hurt our trust. I want you to pay specific attention to the last sentence there. These actions have hurt our trust. I wonder what that could possibly mean. Anyway, this is literally him stating that these are the things he wants from a relationship. If she can't do those things, then it isn't going to work, and they should respectfully part ways, no damage done, no hurt feelings. He is not sitting there, gun to her head, demanding her to date him, while also doing these things he desires from a relationship. This isn't at all misuse of the word boundaries. Boundaries are not a positive nor negative term. Your boundaries can be as simple as don't steal shit from me, or as high end as you must make exactly this amount of money, be this height or above, below this weight and body fat percentage, etc., etc. For my more critical thinkers out there, you're starting to see where this is going, I'm sure. Boundaries are guidelines we draw in any and all relationships, or at least we should, friend, family, or romantic. Whether these are acceptable or not are something that is up to the discretion of the other person engaged in the relationship. If you have a boundary their partner can only ever wear blue dresses and they don't want to do that, then it's their right to choose not to engage in it. The difference between controlling boundaries and non controlling boundaries, or abusive, are not the boundaries themselves, but the implementation and enforcement of said boundaries. For example, if I say my boundary for a relationship is that neither of us sleep with other people, then I cheat on my partner, justify it, then become constantly obsessed with the idea that they're cheating on me, doing things such as constantly checking their phone and social media, telling them that I know they're cheating, deciding which friends they can and cannot hang out with, based entirely because I'm worried they'll sleep together, etc. That is when it becomes controlling and borderline abusive. See how the boundary can be entirely reasonable, but the enforcement is the problem? You can't force someone to adhere to your boundary. That's controlling. Just having boundaries is not. But simply stating this is my boundary, and if you don't want to abide by it, then this isn't going to work, and we should part ways with no hurt feelings or malice between us. This is not an example of controlling or abusive like you're trying to say it is.
Making it harder for the person on the receiving end, Sarah, to challenge it. Okay, so Jonah is basically telling his professional surfer girlfriend, I am not going to be with you if you surf with men, have boundaryless friendships with men, model, post pictures in a bathing suit, or post suggestive pictures in our...
I love it when people like you completely misquote the text that they're reading from. I refuse to believe this is just an accident, If you don't have some sort of like typed up info or whatever so you can reference it while recording these videos, then that's on you. He said sexual. He doesn't want his girlfriend to post sexual pictures on her socials, something entirely reasonable. He states he doesn't want her to model. I'm unsure if she was like a professional model or what she did, but it doesn't really matter. Again, this isn't unreasonable. I personally don't agree with a lot of the things he's asking of her. I think they're things that comes from a more insecure state of mind and an insecure person. I fully believe, though, a person is entitled to set the boundaries of their relationship in order to feel secure within the relationship. You're confusing the idea of forcing someone into doing what you want and simply asking them to do what you want. And if they don't want to, then they can part ways, and again, no harm done. Controlling someone is forcing them into something, not just asking. I'm not entirely sure if you're a real therapist or not, but if you are, I really hope you're no longer practicing. It's genuinely scary how much you are wrong on a topic you should be pretty well versed in. Also, is it entirely legal for an actual licensed therapist to be giving out therapeutic advice online to non patients as well as being wrong about said therapeutic advice? Is that not like borderline malpractice? Because I've seen a lot more than just one of your videos, and let me tell you, if you're influencing half the people who have watched your videos, you're making a lot of people's lives far worse for following your professional advice. Sure, you could ask for my credentials or ask me what makes me qualified to speak on this topic, which I'm sure if you were to actually see this, it's probably the cop out you would go with. However, I'm not in the business of giving life advice. I'm not asking anyone to follow anything I say or believe me at all. I'm just some random guy on the internet and you shouldn't give a damn of what I have to say. What about you, Jeff?
Friends with women who are in unstable places. He goes on to say that these are my boundaries for a romantic relationship. Jonah's use of the term boundaries in this message is a misuse of the concept. A boundary is a healthy limit a person sets for themselves to protect their well-being and integrity. It is a rule or guideline that one creates to identify reasonable, safe, and permissible ways for others to behave towards them and how they'll respond when someone passes those limits. However, in the message Jonah sent to Sarah, he is not setting boundaries that protect his emotional well-being. Instead, he is dictating what behaviors and friendships Sarah is permitted to have. He's essentially instructing Sarah on who she can be friends with, what she can do professionally, and how she can show up online.
Do tell us, Jeff. Would this be the exact same response you'd give if the roles were reversed? If this were a woman telling a man that he can't post sexual things online or that he can't model, do you also think that women shouldn't be allowed to demand to be with someone that is a certain height, makes a certain wage, lives a certain lifestyle? Do you think that a woman can not tell a man that he isn't allowed around other women? Can she not dictate who he is in contact with? Is all of this controlling? Something tells me that if the roles were reversed, you'd speak a very different message. Hell, you wouldn't have anything to say because this wouldn't even be a story. If we want to talk specifically about these messages you have shown, then we'll do just that. None of what was stated here is controlling or abusive. It's extremely picky, I'll grant you, but not yet controlling or abusive.
This is not an example of healthy boundary setting. Instead, it reflects an attempt at control. It demonstrates a lack of respect for Sarah's autonomy and individuality. Jonah's message is more about restricting Sarah's behavior to suit his comfort levels and insecurities rather than expressing his feelings or needs in a healthy manner. A healthier and less manipulative approach might be for Jonah to express how Sarah's actions make him feel without using ultimatums about what she should or should not do. Side note,
I know, very awkward pause, but it is hard to find moments easy to stop in short form content because obviously you have to talk through it really quickly. So, sorry for that. But anyway, sure, this can be an example of unhealthy boundaries, but not for the reason Jeff is saying. These are unhealthy boundaries because they're extremely picky and also don't push Jonah into facing the issues he is insecure with. I fully believe the way to combat insecurities and issues like this is to experience them. Find out they're not so scary. They aren't unhealthy because he is trying to control her. It is unhealthy because he is trying to eliminate all insecurity or issues from his life instead of facing them. But enough with that. Let's go into the part where you say that he has no respect for her and essentially what she wants. Did we read the same messages, Jeff? Because goddamn was he nice in saying he wants specific things, and if those things bring her happiness, then she should go ahead and pursue those things. He tells her to go for it and do what makes her happy, but he simply can't be a part of it. Is this such a wrong thing to say? Seems like an insanely ineffective and super kind way to be for someone who is supposedly controlling and abusive. Right, Jeff? So, another question I have is how do you know he didn't express these feelings before? You make the claim that it would be much healthier for him to tell her that these are how these things affect me and this is how I feel when these things happen or you do these things. Sure, I actually completely agree with that. But how do you know it hasn't already been done? If you look through all the other messages, he says several times he has explained these things before, and so much so that he is tired of explaining them because they're not that complex or difficult to understand. Are you aware of every text, phone call, or in person conversation they've ever had? It's pretty strange to assume that this is the one and only time that they ever talked about these issues. See, this is my issue with just the instantly saying someone is a bad person in these stories that break out. These are texts specifically leaked by his ex from what, 2 years ago? 2 years this person sat on these and suddenly had a change of heart wanting to show them off to the world. Okay, fine. Does that mean she showed everything? No. Did she select only the worst possible messages? Maybe. Did these messages get worse, showing him in an even worse light? Maybe. Is she entirely innocent in this? We don't know. He talks about trust issues being a thing that has happened in their relationship's past. Could there be more to this story we don't know or see? Possibly. Could there possibly be context missing while we are all so damn happy to jump in and judge things? We may never know.
I bet he loved how hot Sarah looked in her posts before they got together, so this is a bunch of bullshit.
What? What kind of point is that? What does that even mean, Jeff? Because he thought she looked good, therefore, he can't complain that she does things like post sexual images online still while she's in a relationship. You do realize that there's like a difference between acting in a single way and acting in a way that you should act when you are in a relationship, or the way that that person involved in the relationship expects you to act, right? Because if you're single and you go around and fuck a bunch of people, nobody cares. It doesn't fucking matter. That's between you and the people you're fucking. However, if you are in a relationship and you go around fucking a bunch of different people, it tends to end a little differently if you're in a monogamous relationship, doesn't it? Like what a fucking stupid ass point. Yes, both can be true, Jeff. He can simultaneously think she's hot while also not wanting her to post pictures of herself online that are revealing and sexual in nature.
Anyway, Jonah needs to consider Sarah's needs and feelings and not just focus on his own, which it seems like he's selfishly doing. One last thing, Jonah Hill made a lovely documentary about therapy, and it's a shame to see him weaponizing what he learned to attempt to manipulate his girlfriend. That sucks.
Yeah, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that he's not using what he learned in therapy to weaponize it against his girlfriend. Well, now ex girlfriend. Anyway, I don't think just because he uses terminology that is apparently now exclusively therapeutic terms that doesn't really mean that he's using the therapy that he apparently was in or has some fucking knowledge of. That doesn't mean he's using it to weaponize it against her. Okay, it's it's just not that deep. And to finish this off, how do you know that he doesn't consider her feelings or what she thinks on the situation? How do you know that? Like, again, we've only seen a handful of text messages. Were you there for every single fucking conversation that happened? Probably not. So, how do you know? This is my issue again with us just jumping on things and making claims like this when we don't have nearly as much information as we should before making any type of conclusion, right? It's not complicated. If we want a sound conclusion on something, we need more evidence, we need more reasoning behind what we're going to say. We can't just say, oh, yes, Jonah Hill is clearly being abusive and controlling towards his ex girlfriend in these messages when we have, what, 6 different texts? Like, is that nearly enough? Or I should say, 6 screenshots of text. Is that nearly enough to completely label him someone who's controlling? I don't think so. There needs to be a bit of a pattern there. We need to see more than him just asking her to not post sexual shit online on her socials or to not have boundaryless relationships with men. I don't think anything that he said for the most part on there was outrageously controlling and abusive. I think some of it was, insecure and kind of petty, like not surfing with men. Uh, that was just idiotic, and I can't really defend that in any way. But the rest of them are all reasonable requests. They're all something that a person should be capable of setting as a boundary. Someone shouldn't be labeled as emotionally abusive and controlling just because they don't want their partner to post sexual images online or having boundaryless relationships with people of the opposite sex. It's not complicated here. It's all really reasonable things to ask of your partner when you're expecting a long-term committed monogamous relationship. I don't get why this is controversial in the slightest. But that was my take on the Jonah Hill controversy as well as my take on whoever the hell this Therapy Jeff guy is. Yeah, this is a prime example of why you probably shouldn't take the advice of random people on the internet in terms of what you want to do with your life or relationships, okay? But of course, that's all from me. I hope you all enjoyed, and don't forget to subscribe and follow on all of my other wonderful, amazing socials that I have listed in the description below. Thank you, and I will catch you all in the next one.